Welcome to this exercise session for old people. And I wanted to do it myself so that you would know somebody that's 86 years old can get up and down from the floor and do a few exercises. And I want to gear it towards the problems that I think are most prominent in people as they age. And one of those conditions, I'll just turn sideways, is to develop what we call an increase in your thoracic curve. So you can see, just as I bend forward, how much an increase there is in my upper back. And the other condition that people develop, and when you always can pick out somebody who's older when they're walking, is that they tend to lean forward. And so they walk like they're leaning forward. Now, one of the reasons for that is that as we get older, we all, not all, but a lot of people develop a condition called spinal stenosis. In spinal stenosis, the vertebrae get too close together because the discs get too small. And if you lean forward, then that tends to open up that space. In some ways, that seems like a good idea, but the problem is if you're walking like this, these muscles back here work and they squeeze you down. So what I want to concentrate on, and why I've selected these particular exercises for myself, which I do every day, is to try to keep an erect alignment and to minimize the tendency for just my back muscles to work, which would further that incidence of, or the factors in spinal stenosis. So I start off with just doing a simple forward bending. Now, I try to bend forward so that I'm trying to stretch in my back, my low back, more than in my upper back. So I'll kind of hold myself a little bit with my hips until I get about this far. I can feel a little bit of a stretch, and then go right on over like I'm going to touch the floor, like this. And it's fine to let your knees bend. It's not written anywhere, thou shalt not keep thy knees straight while bending forward. So don't hesitate. And I usually do 10 repetitions, but I'm only going to do 5. And I want to point out a couple of errors that could make it a problem. And this is a tendency, again, particularly in older people. So I'm going down like this. But when I come back up, what's really important is that you move your hips to come back up. And often, one of the mistakes that people make is they start to move their hips, and then they come back up with their back. And so if they come back up with their back like this, that's going to increase the problem with their spine. And there's another way to do it, which is to go down and then just sway forward. Now that's not so bad, except it doesn't use these gluteal muscles, which is what we really want to use. So one more correct performance is kind of stretch your back a little bit by bending forward, go on over, let your knees bend, and come back up using your gluteal muscles and not arching your back. So I get down by doing like this, and the first exercise that I do is called the quadruped exercise. Now okay. And what's really important in this exercise is to make sure that you feel the weight on your shoulder blades. Your back should be level and the weight on your shoulder blades. You don't want to push like this. That's bad. You're using the muscles in front. What you want to use is the muscles on the back and your shoulder blades. And you don't need to go back, but when you go back, you want to go back by pushing with your hands. You don't need to go all the way to your heels, but go back by pushing with your hands. And try to keep your shoulders down. Don't let them go up like this, but keep your shoulder blades down and just push back, maybe about halfway to your heels. Now, if you've had knee joint replacements or hip joint replacements, that's not a good idea, and I'll show you how to do a modified quadruped. But for those who can get down on the floor and do this, this is the exercise, just pushing back, making sure you're feeling the weight on your shoulder blades. Okay, and then I do some modified push-ups, and they're called modified because I only do them to my knees. And with my hands under my shoulders, I just go down doing these little modified push-ups. I do about 15, but for the sake of this demonstration, and again, you want to feel it on your shoulder blades and letting your arms, your elbows just flex and go on down like this. And then I just go on down all the way to face down. In the face down or prone position, as it's called, what we want to do here is exercise the buttock muscle, the big buttock muscle, the gluteal muscle. And also to make sure that you can really move your hip backwards the way you should. The highest priority is to activate that gluteus maximus muscle. So to do that, you just bend your knee, and you want to let your leg, that's from the knee down to the foot, just fall as best you can onto your thigh. Don't hold it there, or you'll get a cramp in your hamstring muscle in the back of your thigh. And it's all right if you really can't lift it, but think mainly about trying to tighten that buttock muscle and just lift it very slightly off of the ground. You don't want to go high. You're not supposed to go high, but just easily lift it up using that buttock muscle and try to keep your leg as relaxed as possible. And so I usually do about 10 repetitions with each leg, and I actually have more trouble with my left leg, which tells me that my hamstring muscle on the left wants to work harder than my gluteus maximus on the left. So I have to be very careful and just easily lift it up. And again, don't go high. And if anything hurts, like in your back, then don't do it. Just think about tightening the muscle, and you don't even have to lift. So you can do about, maybe start with 5 repetitions and then work up to maybe 10 repetitions with each leg. And then to make sure your hip is getting as much range of motion as possible, I do one where you let your knees are bent, and then you just let them rotate in and out. Now, your hip's actually going the opposite way. So when my legs go in, my hip's turning out. My legs go out, the hip is turning in. And you just try to get as much range of motion. You don't force anything. You just go easy, turning it from one side to the other. And again, both repetitions of about 10. The next thing, face down, is to use all of the muscles in the back of your thigh to lift your leg up. So again, think first about activating the buttock muscle and just lift it off a little bit. Don't go high, just a little bit. And on this one, you just alternate legs, tightening that gluteus maximus muscle until you get about maybe 5 with each leg and work your way up to about 10 repetitions with each leg. Don't push off with the other leg that's staying down. Just think about easily lifting the one with your gluteus maximus muscle. And then the next thing to do, a face down, is to use the muscles that take your leg out to the side. So that's up a little bit farther, and you just take it out to the side, let it rest a minute, and come back in. Not a minute, just a second. Out, stop, in. Out, stop, in. Out, stop, in. And again, start with maybe 5 repetitions and work your way up. Nothing should be hard. This is just to activate the right muscles in the right way. And then there's one other one that might be a little bit harder, and that's with your arms overhead. And if it hurts your shoulders, you don't do it. But let's just see. I'll demonstrate what I'm talking about. Both arms up. And then think about pulling your shoulder blades back and just easily lifting. Now, this may be the hardest of all, but don't worry about lifting high. Just think about trying to do it. Shoulder blades back, easily lift. Shoulder blades back, easily lift. And then just one more, and lift. And that's the idea of the exercises when you're face down. In this position on your back, or supine as it's called, what we want to do is some exercises that really help to stretch you out. And so I'm going to try to pull my shoulder blades together and get my arms out over my head. And then that helps to really stretch my rib cage, lift it up, and decrease that increased curve in your thoracic spine that you worry about with the older person. And so with my arms up over my head, then I'm going to easily bring my knee up towards my chest. Now, I'm letting my leg sort of turn out a little bit, and I'm letting my leg from the knee down hang loosely. You don't want to hold it up. You don't want to be tense. You want to just think about using the minimum amount of muscle and just bring it up. The only muscle you want to also be thinking about working is your abdominal muscles. So if you sort of think about your stomach staying flat, like you're tightening these up a bit, and then easily bring your leg up. And don't push down with the non-moving leg. So if I'm going to bring my right leg up, I don't want to be pushing down with my left. I want it to stay relaxed and easily bring the right leg up. Set it down. Easily bring the left leg up and set it down. And again, it's always good. Maybe just start with about 5 repetitions of that and then work your way up to 10 repetitions with each leg. And after you do that one, then we'll do another one where again, you're going to use your abdominal muscles. Just keep your abdomen flat, but stay stretched out. And you just lift it up. And again, keep it slightly turned out because that helps to use a big muscle called the iliopsoas. And I'm not trying to hold my knee tight. I'm just enough to let my leg stay a little bit straight and just lift it up. And again, don't push down with this other leg. Keep it as relaxed as possible and think more about tightening your abdominal muscles. And then you switch and put the other foot down, this leg out straight, and easily lift it up. That's it. Just easily lift it up, let it go down, relax a minute, lift it up. It's not good to do these pumping things like that because you don't turn muscles off the way you should. So that's why I'm encouraging you to set it down, let it relax, lift it up, let it go down, and let it relax. And then we'll do one more for the legs like this. Well, we can do 2 more, actually. We're going to let your knee go out to the side and come back in. And the purpose of this exercise is, again, to use your abdominal muscles as they control rotation. So they're trying to keep your pelvis from rotating and just have you move in the hip joint. You're staying stretched out the whole time, out and in. And then you switch and do the other leg. Let it go out and back in. You don't push it out. Just let it go where it wants to go and then come back in. And that does that leg. And then the only other thing you can do is now you can bring your arms down and bring your leg up and then easily pull it towards your chest to get a little more stretch across the back of your hip. So pull it up, pull it down. If it doesn't go very far, that's fine. And you don't want any pinching in the front. Just an easily pull towards your chest to get a little more loosening up of the muscles in the back of the hip. So we worked them in the back, we worked them in the front, and we're keeping them nice and loose. So I want to explain one thing before I show you my next exercise, which has to do with my shoulder. And I've been talking about the shoulder blade, like this, and then here's the upper arm bone. And what happens often is if you have this sort of kyphosis thing, then your shoulder blade gets tilted like this and sticks out a little bit. And what happens is these muscles that go from the shoulder blade to the arm bone are used a lot because they're sort of what we call an anti-gravity muscle. And what that does is every time you put your arm down, it tilts your shoulder blade forward. So you keep getting this what we call anterior tilt of your shoulder. And that just contributes to wanting to have your upper back curve. And so to correct your upper back curve and to have your shoulder blade not still tilt forward, you need to do a little stretch of these muscles. And that's what I'm going to show you when I lie down here. And I'll show you how with my right arm, it's problematic. That's my dominant arm. And it's not as problematic with my left arm. So I'm going to go on the table right now and show you this movement. Okay. So you're going to need to kind of turn to your side and fix your shoulder blade against the table. And then you bend your elbow to 90 degrees, and then I hold on to my shoulder so that if I just let this go down, there'll be a tendency for your shoulder blade to go forward. But I use the other hand to hold my shoulder blade down and then just let my arm turn down. And I've got the palm of my hand facing my body, and I just let it rotate. Now, what you can see is with my left arm, this works very, very easily. I don't hardly have to hold my shoulder down. Now I'm going to turn around and show you what happens with the right arm. Now, if I put this arm down and I let my hand go down, my shoulder blade immediately goes down. And if I don't let my shoulder blade go down, this arm doesn't want to go at all. So I have to kind of work at trying to get those muscles on the back of my shoulder blade to let go so that my forearm goes down towards the table. So sometimes I use a little bit of a weight to try to do that. It loosens up. It's getting better and better as I repeat these motions, because in some ways the muscles aren't super short. They're just a little stiff. But the better this works, the easier it is to keep an erect posture, and also the more it protects your shoulder joint so that you don't injure it. See, like right now, it's going down very well. So it just took some loosening up, and I can go the other way, and that's no problem at all. So that's all the exercises I do lying down. And then I do a few things standing up, which I'll show you next. Okay, so now for this exercise, I start by trying to pull my shoulder blades together, my arms out to the side, and slide them up the wall. Again, it's another nice big stretch that makes your trunk become elongated. So just sliding them up the wall and try to keep your arms as close to the wall as possible, as long as you don't have any pain. And I do that about 7 times, and then I go from the front all the way up, and that about 5 or 6 times. And you're trying to keep your back flat. You don't want to let your back come away from the wall. You try to keep yourself back against the wall. And then my last final little exercise is trying to do a little side bend. Now, what's important about this one is you're thinking about the motion bending from the middle of your chest, not in your low back. You don't want the motion coming from your low back. And the other thing you want to do is you want to think about falling to the side. Don't pull yourself down with the muscles on this side, but like letting go with the muscles on the other side. So you easily let yourself go over, trying to keep your back against the wall. Go to the other side, and you're falling over to the other side. And again, you're trying to make the motion in the middle of your chest, not down in your low back, so that you get some stretch. And I have an easier time going to the left than I have going to the right. That feels much stiffer, and so it takes some loosening up to do. And try to keep your legs as relaxed as possible, and just make it a little stretchy trunk motion. And that's my program of trying to fend off looking like a really old woman and still be able to move around with great mobility. So that's it, and thank you very much. So I mentioned to you that you don't have to get up and down off of the floor, and that we do what we call a modified quadruped. And if you have a kitchen counter or something that's a little higher, probably even than this, but you lean on your forearms, and then you want to let your back relax, like your chest is going down towards the table as much as possible, and the weight on your shoulder blades, and then you just push back with your arms. And again, the whole idea is to try to decrease that curvature in your upper back and still put some weight on your shoulder blades as you sort of rock back. And so this is what we call the modified quadruped exercise. So when I practice getting down on the floor, because after I do the forward bending, then I just go down to my hands and knees like this. And then, as I showed you, after I finish the exercises on my back, I just roll over, and I'm lucky enough, I just put one leg up and just pop up like that. Now, it may not be as easy for everyone, so you might need to, some people need to maybe crawl over and get to a chair. So have a chair handy and then put one leg up and then just push with your hands to get up. That's another way to do it.